Today we uncover the thrilling story behind Ozzy Osbourne's groundbreaking debut, Blizzard of Oz. From the electrifying riffs of Randy Rhoads to the thunderous rhythms of Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, we explore how this iconic lineup created a metal masterpiece. For 10 years, Ozzy had been the singer in Black Sabbath, one of the biggest rock acts in the world. But on April 27, 1979, while Black Sabbath were in rehearsals in Los Angeles, Ozzy was fired due to substance abuse issues. Alone and in the darkness, Ozzy Osbourne sat drunk, stoned, high on cocaine, and shut off from the outside world. Sharon Arden worked for her father Don's firm at their LA office, had spent most of her life around rock bands. She'd first met Ozzy when she was just 18 years old. Like her father, Sharon had a tough, no-nonsense approach to business. What Sharon Arden said to Ozzy that day would change his life and possibly save him from himself. Quote, "Listen," she told him, "if you clean up your act, we want to manage you." Among the various LA-based guitarists who later auditioned for a spot in Ozzy's band, Randy Rhoads was the only candidate who really impressed Ozzy. When Rhoads plugged in and played, Ozzy couldn't believe what he was hearing. Quote, "I was thinking either this was an incredible gear that I'm on, or this guy is something else. When it came to music, we just clicked. With Black Sabbath, they'd just come up with the riff, and if I couldn't beat the riff, I'd have to sing to it. Randy was the first guitar player to really help me instead of just saying, put a vocal over that. He was a very patient man." At the time of the auditions, Rhoads was still officially a member of LA rock band Quiet Riot, so initial rehearsals with Ozzy were conducted in secrecy in Los Angeles and were assisted by drummer Frankie Banali and bassist Dana Strum. In September 1979, on a night out at the Music Machine Club in London, Ozzy befriended Bob Daisley, who had recently been the bassist in Rainbow. He would prove to be a massive and important partner for Ozzy in the future. Ozzy, Daisley, and Randy Rhoads began writing for the new album and auditioning drummers at two studios, Rockfield in Wales and Trans Am Trucking in Suffolk. By Daisley's memory, it was he and Randy Rhoads who wrote most of the music. Quote, "The main riffs came from Randy," he said. "Then he and I would work those riffs into songs. But Ozzy did have his input. His vocal melodies were always good and always important." Daisley also stated that he wrote approximately 98% of the lyrics, just as Black Sabbath's bassist Geezer Butler had written the lyrics in Sabbath. Daisley goes on to say, quote, "Ozzy was not a lyricist, but a couple of the song titles were his. The title of the album was also Ozzy's, the cocaine referencing pun, Blizzard of Oz." During these initial writing sessions, a friend of Ozzy Osbourne's, named Barry Scrennage, was performing as the group's drummer. Scrennage was never considered as a candidate to be the group's permanent drummer and was not involved in the songwriting process at all. The band recorded demos of the songs I Don't Know, Crazy Train, Goodbye to Romance, and You Looking at Me, Looking at You in Birmingham in early 1980 with drummer Dixie Lee. They had hoped Lee would be a permanent member, but he wasn't the final piece of the puzzle, according to Daisley. After auditioning several drummers, ex-Uriah Heep member Lee Kerslake was hired as the permanent drummer. This completed lineup retreated to Clearwell Castle for 6 days to rehearse and give Kerslake an opportunity to learn the new songs. The first track written for the album was Goodbye to Romance. Osbourne has stated that the song was his way of saying goodbye to his former band, Black Sabbath, as he thought his career was over after leaving the band. Ozzy nicknamed Bob Daisley Sid Serious because Daisley was so focused on the task at hand, but it wasn't only Ozzy who was drinking and doing drugs. "It was a fun time," Daisley says. "We'd all do a little bit, apart from Randy, who didn't do drugs at all. But Ozzy, he tended to overdo it. Witnessing the singer's self-destructive binges, Daisley was inspired to write the lyrics to what became one of the album's most famous songs, Suicide Solution. Ozzy wrote the opening line, "Wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker," and claims it was about AC/DC singer Bon Scott, who had died of acute alcohol poisoning on February 19, 1980. Chris Sangridis was originally hired to produce the album, with Max Norman to serve as studio engineer. Osbourne and the band were very unhappy with Sangridis' production, and he was fired and replaced by Norman, who stepped in to complete producing and engineering. Norman's production work on Blizzard of Oz is uncredited, though he did go on to produce all of Ozzy's albums prior to 1986's The Ultimate Sin. At the time of the album's recording, the band itself was billed as The Blizzard of Oz. The band members were expecting the album to be credited to the band with Osbourne's name in smaller print, just as it appeared on the Crazy Train single released several days prior. The back cover of the first pressing of the Crazy Train single stated that the track came from a forthcoming Jet Records album entitled Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz, Volume 1. In fact, when the band appeared at the Reading Festival in 1980, they were billed simply as Ozzy Osbourne's New Band. According to Daisley, when the album was released, the words Ozzy Osbourne were in bigger print than The Blizzard of Oz, which made it look like an Ozzy Osbourne album called The Blizzard of Oz. Randy Rhoads was never one to rock the boat. He knew he was in a situation which was a very good opportunity for him for being relatively unknown. So when Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley were ousted from the band, Randy had no allies and the act became Ozzy Osbourne and no longer a band. Rhoads felt that he and Daisley were contributing the vast majority of the songwriting and arranging, and he had little interest in performing in a backing band for someone he felt wasn't contributing as much. Lee Kerslake has maintained that Rhoads almost left the band in late 1981 due to this displeasure. Quote, "He did not want to go on tour with Osbourne. We told him we were thrown out. He said he was going to leave the band as he did not want to leave us behind. I told him not to be stupid, but thanks for the sentiment." Entertainment attorney Stephen Machat, who was also involved in the deal Osbourne signed with Jet Records, said in his 2011 book, Gods, Gangsters, and Honor, A Rock and Roll Odyssey, that Osbourne's soon-to-be manager and wife, Sharon Levy, was not happy with the level of creative input that Rhoads, Daisley, and Kerslake had in the Blizzard of Oz album and did not want them to share the credit. Album producer Max Norman concurs that Daisley and Kerslake made considerable songwriting contributions during their time in the band, while also noting that the Osbourne camp might want to dispute the album tracks Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley, which were released as singles in 1980. Crazy Train made number 49 on the UK singles chart and was moderately successful in the United States, reaching number 9 on the Billboard Top Tracks chart. And the single peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Bubbling Under the Hot 100 chart in 1981. Though it received little airplay upon its initial release, Crazy Train has become one of Osbourne's signature songs and a staple of classic rock radio playlists over the ensuing years. In January 2009, the song achieved 2X Platinum certification status. The album was a commercial success, being certified 4 times platinum in the US in 1997, a feat Osbourne would not achieve again until No More Tears was certified in 2000. In 2019, it was certified 5 times platinum. In the UK, it was the first of 4 Osbourne albums to attain silver certification by the British Phonographic Industry. It also ranked 13th on a Guitar World Readers poll of the 100 greatest guitar albums of all time. Osbourne readily admitted that at the time the album was being recorded, he felt he was in direct competition with his former band, Black Sabbath. In 2002, Blizzard of Oz was controversially re-released with the original bass and drum tracks replaced by newly recorded parts from bassist Robert Trujillo of Metallica and drummer Mike Bordin. Osbourne's wife and manager, Sharon, later stated that it was Ozzy, not she, who was responsible for the decision to re-record the parts, stating, "Because of Daisley and Kerslake's abusive and unjust behavior, Ozzy wanted to remove them from these recordings. We turned a negative into a positive by adding a fresh sound to the original albums." However, Osbourne contradicted this claim in his 2009 autobiography, stating that the decision to re-record the original bass and drum parts was strictly Sharon's decision, and that "I didn't have anything to do with that decision," he said. He also stated his wife just snapped and had it done without his knowledge. He also stated that a sticker was put on the covers telling everyone about it, though in fact the sticker was not initially placed on the reissue and was only placed on the covers at a later date due to fan outcry over the altered recordings. I want to thank everyone for joining me on this fascinating journey through the history of one of metal's most iconic records of all time, Blizzard of Oz. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you like this video, check out this video here. This has been Damon D. One World, One Rock.